I'm Norah Dunbar. I'm a professor of communication at University of California, Santa Barbara. I study deception detection, and I teach courses in interpersonal and nonverbal communication. Today we're going to be talking about deception detection. How can you tell when somebody's lying to you? At UC Santa Barbara, I teach a class in deception detection for undergraduate students, and they always want to know how to win at poker, how to lie to their mom, but really the class is about understanding the reasons behind deception and why we need to learn the difference between truth and false when we're interacting with other people. Deception is really when you're intentionally telling somebody something that you know to be false. So the intent is an important component of that, because if you think something's true, then you're not technically lying. Or if you tell somebody something wrong by mistake, that's also not a lie. It's the intentional telling of a falsehood that is how we define deception. If you're in a job like law enforcement or security or an educator or a psychiatrist or a psychologist, it's really important that we understand when someone is lying and when they're telling the truth, because it can have serious repercussions. It can be life-saving. And so there are some areas of life where understanding deception is an essential skill. Are law enforcement officers better than the general public at detecting deception? Unfortunately, they are not. And it's partly because they are not getting the training that they need. They're being told to go with their gut, or they're being trained in the wrong cues, such as lack of eye contact or fidgeting. But if they're given the correct training, if they are taught to look for clusters or cues that are in patterns, or if they're taught questioning techniques that are more likely to elicit the truth, then they can be more effective than the general public. When I'm training people how to detect deception, I tend to teach them about 3 different cues to deception: tension, uncertainty, and cognitive load. So tension is sort of a rigidity in your body. Uncertainty has to do with how they answer. It's what Bella DePaulo called a lack of embracement of the story, that they don't really feel ownership of the story, and so they don't have a lot of certainty that what they're saying is the truth. And the third thing is cognitive load, which has to do with their mental resources. Deception is very cognitively taxing. It uses a lot of mental energy, and so they tend to show things like shorter answers, they repeat themselves more. So it's really a mix of verbal and nonverbal cues in those 3 patterns. The video game that we developed is called Veritas. It was developed by the K-20 Center at the University of Oklahoma through a grant funded by the National Science Foundation. And we wanted to try and help professionals like law enforcement officers to do a better job of detecting deception and teach them cues and patterns of cues that can really be more diagnostic than what they've been trained to rely on. It's a real challenge to integrate human judgments with those given by algorithms and technology, but that's an area of research that's really growing right now, is learning how to integrate human judgments and the technological assistance that we get from computers. I think it's a really interesting area of research for the future.